Did you fly across the Pacific into Asia? If so, you could be getting some cash back. Plus, China adds more partners to its AIIB, much to the chagrin of the United States. And finally, North Korea once more shows its hand with Kaesong. These stories are coming up next on the Asia Brief. A very good morning to you. It is Thursday, March 19th, 2015. I, of course, am your host, Steve Miller, and I'd like to thank you for spending just a little bit of time with me. Now, first up, if you flew across the Pacific to Asia sometime within the last 15 years, you could be getting some hard cash back as a result of a settlement with 8 airlines. 26 airlines are involved in a class action lawsuit regarding price fixing. 8 have settled, and lawsuits are continuing with the others. The 8 that settled have agreed to refund a total of $40 million, and these airlines are Air France, Cathay Pacific, Japan Airlines, Malaysia Airlines, Qantas, Singapore Airlines, Thai Airways, and Vietnam Airlines. The case sprouted from U.S. investigations into price fixing in the air cargo industry. Attorney Adam Zappala, who worked on the case, spoke with the Voice of America.
Many of the same players in the air passenger industry also are air cargo carriers. In fact, a lot of the cargo that's carried day to day throughout the world is carried in the belly of air passenger planes. And there's a very large class action pending in the Eastern District of New York that pertains to the air cargo price fixing case. And many of the defendants in that case are defendants in our case as well. People will be paid out on a pro rata basis according to the number of flights they had during the period of time. If only 20% of the class file claims, then that 20% of the class will be getting paid and they'll be divvying up the $40 million.
The airlines that settled continue to deny any allegations and liability, and if you'd like to see if you're eligible for the settlement, visit www.airlinesettlement.com. Over the past 15 years, I of course have traveled many times back and forth between Asia and the United States, which does require flying over the Pacific. In fact, my first trip to Asia was in 2007, and I flew Qantas, so I might be eligible for this refund. So I went to the website and found that it's available in 10 different languages, including Khmer. And the form you have to fill out to see if you're eligible takes less than 5 minutes. Once the United Kingdom announced that it was going to join China's Asia Infrastructure and Investment Bank, the floodgates opened, and a ton of other countries followed suit. Germany, France, and Italy have all joined, plus South Korea, Australia, and even Luxembourg may join. Since there's a looming March 31st deadline to secure founding member status, expect to see more countries join the AIIB. The United States is opposed to the AIIB, possibly because it views it as a rival to the World Bank and Asian Development Bank, which it favors. If you're unclear about what exactly development banks are, here's Curtis S. Chin with the Milken Institute.
And so what are development banks? These are multilateral or owned by government institutions that also help countries and government.
Now, as I mentioned before, the United States is largely opposed to the AIIB. And one of the possible reasons is because China is putting up $50 billion to the proposed $100 billion initial offering. So it would have a 50% stake in that. And some believe that would give China too much control in directing the development nature of the bank. Now, coming up on Friday's Asia News Weekly podcast, Curtis Chin joins me once again to discuss financial matters here in the Asia Pacific region. When will Seoul learn that doing business with North Korea at the Kaesong Industrial Complex brings nothing but headaches? Last month, North Korea stated it would unilaterally raise the minimum monthly wage of Kaesong Industrial Complex workers. The move would change workers' wages from $70.35 to $74, and that was to begin this month, but Seoul, as one might expect, objected. Im Byung-chol, Unification Ministry spokesman, said, "Our government will never accept any unilateral regulation changes by the North, and will work very closely with companies with operations in Kaesong to rectify the situation." Yoon Chung-kung, vice chairman of South Korea's Kaesong Industrial Complex Business Association, says, I am not saying the rate hike is impossible, but since the business complex is created as a joint project, such a unilateral decision to revise the business guideline is unacceptable. And Chung Ki-sup, the head of the Council of South Korean Businesses in Kaesong, says, "At this point, increasing the minimum wage itself is not the problem, but rather unilaterally changing the labor law is the problem. This can easily be solved when South-North government talks resume." The Kaesong industrial complex came about because of this dream of unifying the peninsula. And quite frankly, it's a pipe dream. There is going to be no unification, quite possibly even within my lifetime. The Kaesong industrial complex grew about because of this dream, and in my opinion, is a bad idea. Simply because it gives the DPRK too much controlling power in how to manage the plant. And we saw what happened in 2013 when they just decided to shut the whole thing down. Now, this whole wage increase issue isn't the first time something like this has happened, and it's not going to be the last. There are significant risks in doing business in Kaesong, and this is just simply one of many. And the businesses need to stop fussing, as well as the South Korea government. They need to stop complaining when something like this happens, because this is exactly what they signed up for. To keep up with more news from the region, please follow Asian News Weekly on Facebook or Twitter. If you have any thoughts or comments about some of the stories in today's shows, or maybe you have some feedback or some questions, please shoot me an email message. You can do that at podcast@asiannewsweekly.net. If you enjoyed today's program, please share it with your friends, and while you're at it, subscribe if you haven't. It's absolutely free, and when you do, the next episode is delivered automatically to you. You can do that on YouTube, on our website, asiannewsweekly.net, or even in your favorite podcast application like iTunes or Stitcher. Well, my friends, that is all the time I have today. I'll be back just after midnight with the Asian News Weekly podcast. But until then, thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. My name is Steve Miller, reminding you to be true to yourself and always be awesome.